What is going on, everybody? And welcome to the script. I am your host, Isaac Paul. This is going to be an interesting evening because I am completely without a chaperone. And what do I mean by I don't have a chaperone this evening? So I told you guys last week that starting today, that we are going to be doing the script every week. So every week you can expect to see me here a little bit late today, right? So I mean, I guess that's the issue when you don't have a chaperone, and sometimes, shit happens. But with that being said, uh, because I'm going to be doing it every week now, right now the relationship that I have with blackdoctor.org is that I do it every first and third Tuesdays. But then, I got to thinking about it and I was listening to people and they started asking, like, what, Ike, man, like, we really enjoy you when you do the script. You should do it more often. So I said, you know what? I'll oblige, and it's one of those kind of things where I enjoy doing it after doing it for several months alongside blackdoctor.org. I feel a little bit more comfortable with it. So I said, you know what, on the off weeks, while I'm not doing it with blackdoctor.org, we'll just pull up on Tequila Tales, right? And so if you are tapping in right now, it's because you were paying attention to when I said last go round that I'll be doing it every week. And because of the fact that we're doing this strictly on Tequila Tales platforms, that means that I can take a little bit more liberty, right? Like anytime that you're doing a collaboration, you obviously want to make certain that you're kind of like on your P's and Q's, right? So one of the things that I have always attempted to do is, be mindful of the content. Like they know what Tequila Tales is. So I never had to pretend like Tequila Tales wasn't Tequila Tales. So it wasn't that I was ever afraid to curse. It wasn't that I was afraid of the content, but being aware of the kind of organization that they are, I try to kind of put, how do I put this? Because I mean, I wasn't completely censored. You know what I mean? Like, we'll still let some shit fly, but I was a little bit more contained, a little bit more calibrated. But on the off nights, right? Those are going to be the nights when we don't have a chaperone. And when I don't have a chaperone, okay, now we can really get loose, right? Now we can really get loose. That's the main reason why when I reached out, and I decided that I was going to do it from week to week now, I said, you know what? I won't even reach out to blackdoctor.org and pitch them on the idea of doing it weekly because matter of fact, when they first started, they asked me if I wanted to do it weekly. They was like, man, as many times as you want to do it. But I was like, you know what? Let's start off with doing it bi-monthly because it's one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, it's not difficult to pull up. Oh yeah, I can do it, multiple times a week. And then, sometimes I have a bad habit of like biting off more than I can chew, or like they say, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. So you got to be cautious sometimes because I might dive in and just be super excited about doing something. And, like doing it weekly or multiple times a week, that's a legitimate grind, especially if you're not being paid for that shit, right? like you really got to make certain that you're doing it at a cadence, and at a frequency that makes sense to you. But now that I have got my feet wet, and now that I do feel like, what, I can see the value in not only continuing to have these conversations, but like amplifying it, I said, okay, yeah, we will do it weekly. But like I said, on the off weeks, we're going to be primarily at the Tequila Tales. And just so y'all can know, it's she's gonna be a little more spicy on this side, right? So if it's a little too racy for you, or if you got to clutch your pearls, I completely understand. You might want to only hang with us during the blackdoctor.org collaborations, right? But once we come over here, I figure, okay, we can loosen up a little bit more. You might even see me drink a little bit more. I mean, not that I don't, beforehand, but again, when you're collaborating with a professional environment, what I'm saying, you try to be as conducive as possible, and yeah. So with that being said, like I said, we are without a chaperone. So I kind of want to have some fun this go round. And not that we don't always have fun, but you know, y'all know what I'm saying. One of the things that's also important to know, same way as always, no matter what platform you are watching it from, I'm still streaming through like 4 different locations. So even if you are the only one that is actively streaming it at the location that you're streaming it at, I want you to know that if you make any kind of comments, I can not only read them, but I can interact with them. Right. And also, shit, since I don't really have many rules, if you're watching this and you like, yo, I want to hop on. Again, I don't have a chaperone, right? So listen, if somebody want to jump into the conversation more than just virtual, if you want to tap in, I have the ability to do so. I can send you a link right now and we can have a back and forth in a live space. But I do have a show that's planned because I feel like in the past couple of weeks, not only have we been covering like current events, things of that nature, but I really haven't gotten an opportunity to do deeper dives on the content, right? So for those of you all that are not familiar with what the Tequila Tales is, it is a fully engaging and highly interactive discussion on love and relationships. I always make it clear what it is not is a panel discussion, right? So panels, no shade to panels, but when you're dealing with panels, pretty much you just kind of plug in and you're there to either listen to experts or to notable individuals give you their perspectives, their thoughts, on a wide array of different topics. With the Tequila Tales, our motto is with love, we all have a story to share. And so that has always been kind of what the impetus of what makes it so special is that we are hearing the stories, the thoughts, the opinions of all of the attendees of our live shows. And so, because we capture this content, a lot of times there's a lot of good stuff that I don't always get to dig into. And so now that we're going to be doing these shows weekly, I'll have a much greater opportunity of doing just a deeper dive in some of the minutia of what happens inside of these live events, right? Because to me, it's something that's incredibly special. And the reason I say it's special is because, you know, I feel like when it comes to this online space that we're in right now, when we first kind of gotten into social media, it was fun and it felt like people were being more open, they were sharing more, and it felt like we were connecting. So that's what was dope about social media in the onset, is it really did help to bridge people. It really did help us to connect with one another. But now that it's become so ingrained into everything that we do and it's kind of common, I feel like it operates differently now. So whereas it used to bring us together, it feels like it's taking us apart. It feels like it's causing us to separate a little bit. You know what I mean? And while people can openly share their thoughts and their views online, I always get the feeling that, you know, I don't think people are being very honest. I don't think that they're being very transparent with how they really feel. I feel like with the acceleration of troll culture, everybody is just about trying to get your attention. They're just about saying shit for shock and awe. That's the only real reason that they're saying it, is because they want a reaction out of you. They really don't have an opinion about it whatsoever, or they might agree with you, but what they don't want is to be ignored, right? They don't want to go unseen. And so somewhere down the line, trolling became kind of like the knee jerk. I mean, just like how, we got a segment that we say, stay out of the comments. Like, I don't know about y'all, as much as I stay out of the comments, you kind of can't. You kind of cannot stay out of the comments. It's almost like the comments are intrinsically a part of whatever piece of content. Like sometimes you might get sent a piece of content through the algorithm and you'll ask yourself, okay, why is this coming up in my news feed? Until you go into the comments section and you're like, oh, okay, this is where my community exists, right? Like, this is why we are here, because they will just be lighting it up and it's nothing but comedy in the comment and in the comment section. And, I think that when done tastefully, the comment section or the trolling can be fun. It can be lighthearted. It can make you laugh. But then there's a darker side of it where it's just like, okay, this is just rage bait, right? This is just your attempt at seeing if you can agitate someone, or if you can dim someone's light, or if you can make them feel a little less well. You know what I mean? And so because of that, I feel like there are a lot of times that we haven't really gotten to a space where we can have open and like authentic communication, right? And so that's one of the things that I love about our live events, is that it's almost troll proof. If you have an individual that comes in and thinks that they're going to troll, it's like, good luck, because not only will I challenge you, but the room is going to police itself, right? It's never mean spirited. And so when you get a back and forth, it's an honest back and forth. It's two people that really strongly feel that way about that topic, not someone that's just taking a stance because they want to be controversial, right? Or they want to stir the pot. It's like, nah, this person is standing on how they actually feel. And so I feel like when you're sitting inside of these environments, right? Like, yeah, there's an entertainment value to it, but on another level, it can really help you to grow and to just understand how different we all really are. You know what I mean? Even people that you might feel aligned with, or people that you may agree with in many other areas. You might touch one topic and it's just like, yo, we see this very differently, right? And so that's one of the things that I always feel has such tremendous value about the live shows. And so, with this particular episode, I did want to do a bit of a deeper dive into some of that content, right? And I think what we'll start is just with this one, right? So like what I'll do is I'll play a clip, and then we'll kind of go back and forth about some of the context. And like I said, feel free to share your thoughts, not only during but afterwards. But with this one, was where a young lady was speaking about, we were talking about podcasts, and just kind of this new space, kind of almost like what I was just talking about a moment ago, like how we're in this new space where you're not really getting authentic communication online. And this was the comment that this young lady made.
Good men have experienced women who have treated them poorly. Good women have experienced men who have treated them poorly, right? A lot of these podcasts and a lot of these folks, right, speak to the trauma that they've experienced. So a good man could be like, I did all these things. And then I hear said folk tell me, it's not you, you the prize. Tell her you the prize, right? You the prize. She the problem, you the prize. Yeah, I am the prize, right? It's speaking to people's trauma because they're not in a healed space. I have not encountered a man in a healed space who speaks like that speaks catty like that. I'm not saying they don't have a problem with what women are saying, but how they approach it, how they address it, how it's expressed is very different. And so I think, the ways in which, and it's not just on the male side, right? There are women out here who are, they're spouting off a lot of things, and it's speaking to those experiences instead of us taking a step back, like what you're saying in terms of even within our communities, the conversations that we have with people we know who are in healthy relationships. When you know people who are in healthy relationships or people who've gone through that process and the things that they say, that's what's happening, not publicly, not in podcasts, not on social media, because that's not going to get the views.
And that alone is one of the things that I think makes this space that we're in, and specifically the stance that I typically take, so difficult, right? It's like, on one level, you want to do something that you feel you can kind of stand on, right? You want to create content that you're proud of. You want to create content that really speaks to you and that you think adds value. And just me on some Virgo shit, we're the sign of service. And so in most cases, we're typically trying to help someone, trying to see if we can help someone improve, be better, whatever. But then on the other end, it's like you do want to perform, right? You do want to see your content perform well. You do want to see whatever is deemed as success. And in most cases, inside of the social media space, success is likes, views, shares. It's the engagement. But the way that the algorithm has been set up is like the content won't even get served to you unless there's some conflict, right? Unless two people can take opposing viewpoints and there can be a bit of a battle. And in most cases, that battle gets waged in the comment section, like I said a moment ago, right? Unless that occurs, that piece of content that could have been beautiful, that piece of content that could have spoken to someone's spirit, that could have been the message or the word that they dramatically needed to hear, right? That piece of content can completely fall flat. But then let it be something else. Let it be something where it's like two people going back and forth, or there's some contention, right? Something that gets the high value men arguing with, the independent women in the comment section, right? Like these outdated tropes. It's almost like that piece of content is like a bat signal, and then just out of the blue, all of these people, like I said last week, like these trolls just wake up like, and they come from underneath, their bridge, and then they decide to attack your comment section. Like, for instance, there's a clip that I'll play shortly where I played it, very simple piece of content. I thought that the woman made a very level-headed statement, and I kid you not, within 3 minutes of me posting this this piece of content, a dude came in just totally tearing it down, and it was just like, dude, are you serious? Like, you got to wake up early in the morning and just be an angry individual to try to find something negative. Like, literally called this woman, I'm gonna have to find the comment just so that I can let you see how absolutely absurd it was that no comments are on this piece of content. He comes in, starts hating, and so, immediately, as Tequila tells, I responded to it, but then other people started responding to it, and it was like right then you saw traction a little bit. And so then the troll comes in later on, like he basically wants congratulations because, oh yeah, like he did me a favor. And I'm like, nigga, you a step away from getting blocked. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't doing me no favors. You know what I mean? Like, because I guess just because that's just not where I'm at right now. Like, maybe back in the day, that's where I was at. Like, I was searching for the salacious content. I was searching for the moments that I knew would track well, that would draw people's attention to what the brand was. I would never post anything that I think was disparaging to a person or the brand. But if it was spicy, if it showed a little bit of that conflict, for me, it was entertainment. But I think just in this day and age now, man, I'm exhausted from it, right? And so it's like, you hate to feel like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like you're trying to be that type of the word slips my mind right now, but just I'm gonna take all the pain, and I'm gonna take all the lashes, for these individuals. Like nah, I don't want to seem like that's who I am, right? Because this is still a business, and this is still on some levels entertainment. But I do agree with what the woman said, right? In terms of just how, like, a lot of times in this space, you'll see people that are speaking from a space of trauma. And so I also think that that's one of the reasons of why the content gets so much better traction, because it's easy to speak a language that people are familiar with, right? Like in anger, fear, right? Those are way easier languages for people to understand than love. You know what I'm saying? Peace. Like, that's not as common as we would like to believe it is, And so it's like, if you really want to tap into people, you look at the nightly news. Nightly news is not going to show you some shit that makes you feel good about yourself. It's just not the way that they're built, right? Nightly news is always going to lead with murder, death, kill. How can I scare the shit out of you before you go to bed? You know what I'm saying? And then maybe they hit you with like that one good story on the back end, that one feel good story after they pumped you full of 55 minutes of like danger and destruction, And so there comes a point where it's like we're all feeding off of that, And so when you decide to take this road, and actually do something that you think is like, okay, like, yeah, let's have real, open, honest, authentic conversation, you have to almost accept that on some level, you're probably not going to be as popular as your counterparts. Maybe, right? But you have to accept that I'm intentionally not doing things that I know would get the likes, the views, the whatever. You know what I'm saying? And, it could be like bittersweet, because on one level, you can be in love with the content that you create. You can be in love with the one-on-one conversations that you have with people that let you know that they rock with your brand and how much they appreciate what it is that you're doing. But then on the next level, you have to see your counterparts using tactics that you have complete opportunity to utilize yourself, right? Like, nobody's saying I can't do these things. Nobody's saying I can't play into it. Like, and some of the suggestions that I've gotten are fascinating sometimes, right? Because people will be like, man, you know what you should do? Man, you should get like a panel of really attractive women, right? I mean, because that alone would be, and I'm like, yeah, you talking about like the podcast bros, like the same shit that they all doing, right? Just get a couple of Instagram baddies, airheads, and sit up and have mind-numbing conversations until I decide to flip the script and go Kevin Samuel on them. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, yeah, that's always been there, right? But I don't know, that shit's exhausting. Now, this was an interesting comment.
I feel like I'm going to speak for you guys. I don't know if they know that it's okay to approach us sometimes, right? We can do the eye thing, you know, hey, but how do they know it's safe to approach us? So I've heard that being a theme and a challenge, but I think it's possible. I've experienced it. I'm experiencing it now and I'm living my best life. When we think about it and it's men versus women or masculine versus feminine, if you're in that energy space, I feel like people pick up on that and they know where you're at. If you're in that space of like, I'm just here for the vibes. I have a plan. I have a vision. I can communicate that on a second, third date. But for the first date, I'm just here for the energy and see how you're doing. I feel like that ease and that peace as a woman brings a little bit of femininity to a situation. I'm not going to come right out the gate and say what I'm looking for. But I think for the guys, like, they might not always know if it's safe to approach us or if they are going to be encroaching on our space, if they're going to be offending us by the way they're approaching us. And I'm talking about the ones who come respectfully. The ones that come respectfully. I feel like sometimes they don't know. So that's my question to the guys. Do you guys know when it's okay to approach us? And if so, how can we signal like, hey, come talk to me without being the weirdo that's like, hey, come talk to me?
That's a good question.
We got company, right? So we'll see how long he's going to be able to rock with me because he's active right now, right? And it is what it is. Anytime he sees these lights, like we're nearing bedtime, and so he sees these lights and he's, like I said, he's active. He wants to climb on this table. He wants to tear up the equipment. Like it is what it is. So we'll see how obedient he'll be during this period. But yeah, no, that last comment I found to be kind of interesting, right? Like, as it relates to how does one approach someone in 2024 and beyond, and see, obviously I'm not in them streets. Okay. I ain't in them streets. But when I get out and about and I move around, now, this is just from my perspective. This is just from my not industry. Like I'm about to be that nigga that like ain't laced up his cleats in years, but talking shit about LeBron. You know what I mean? Like I'm about to be that guy right now, right? So just hear me out. It don't seem like it's that difficult. It does not seem like it's that difficult. Because what I see inside of women is a desire to be approached. Right now, I could be wrong. I could be wrong in this regard. If anybody is watching this, feel free to respond and let me know. Like, no, Ike, you're completely off in this regard, right? These women out here today are different, and I'm like, are they really though? Right? Or is it just the ones specifically that you are targeting? You know what I mean? Like, first off, I've always been one of those individuals that I'm into like communication. I'm into a woman's mind. Like, yeah, I like the other stuff too, to be clear. Like, you just can't be busted and be brilliant. Like, that ain't busted and brilliant ain't two things that, necessarily go together well with me. But I am drawn to intelligent women, right? And so I don't see intelligent women being super different in 2025 than they was when I was out in them streets. You know what I mean? Now, they may be a little less willing to put up with bullshit. And if that's what people are referring to, then okay, I can understand that, right? Like, as the game evolves, I feel like people have to evolve with the game. And I feel like that's one of the areas where a lot of people that are not winning today, and I'm just speaking purely, this probably goes for women and men, to be honest with you. If you are not winning on some level, it may be that there are times where there could just be scarcity, right? Depending upon the area that you're in, you may not have many options. And if that's the case, then I get it, right? Because you cannot squeeze water from a rock. If you just happen to be in one of those situations and there ain't no niggas in your vicinity, right? Then it does become difficult to say, I'm going to be able to find someone. That's fair. But there are other times where it's like, nah, there are other people that are going out on dates. Like, there are other people that's winning. There are other people that are making substantive there are other people that are making substantive connections, right? And you aren't. And if you are not one of those people, there does come a time where you have to say, is it the system or is it me, right? Is it the game or is it the player? Because the player has to adapt to the game You can't be playing ball in 2024 mad because you can't snatch somebody by the throat like they used to be able to back in the 80s, right? If you're going to play today's game, you got to play today's game the way that the refs are calling it, right? And it is what it is. So, I mean, that is an unfortunate reality is that you have to be aware. You see this stuff, man, and you just can't wait to get after it. See, this is what happened when I don't have a chaperone. He like, oh, we ain't got no chaperone? Cool. see, look, nice hair. I tried, son. I tried, man. I apologize. Oh my goodness. It's adorable, right? I'm embracing these moments as they come, right? Because I know he won't always be that size. But yeah, man, like there are times, man, where you gotta ask yourself, like, okay, how do I need to adjust my game to be able to play in this new space? I know that there was a clip that we played last week where one of the attendees, and she's a regular at this point, and she always gives us something enjoyable, but she was just talking about how what she desires is that 90s kind of love, and we spoke about this in the past, like that old school romance. And I know what it is that she meant when she said that, right? Like I can acknowledge that there are some things that are different, today. But my thing is this: if there are a bunch of people out here that's longing for a 90s kind of love, then that just means you need to meet that person then, right? Like at that point, it's about alignment. It's about finding someone that is seeking or desiring the same thing that you desire, and I don't know. I feel like there are times where people say that, but one of the things that I've recognized about just all of us as we continue to age and mature is that we do become a little more rigid, right? We are a little less willing to give in. It's always like it's my way or the highway. We get so comfortable in being alone, which on one level can be a good thing, right? It can be a good thing because you love yourself, and it's like I'd rather be happy alone than be, unhappy with someone else. And I completely agree with that. I do believe, however, that all relationships are built off of compromise. They are built off of giving a little and taking a little. And I think that there are times where we come in and off the gate, we got the things that we want, and it's cool to have those standards, but I don't know if we recognize like how rigid we are in just some common areas of communication. I can see it when people are talking inside a tequila tail sometimes, and I don't go into full on relationship expert mode on them or anything like that, but I can tell, like, okay, if you approach men or women with that same kind of energy that you're talking right now, that would be a bit of a stiff arm for me, right? Like that would be a bit of a, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? But I also know my areas and how there are some areas where I've grown to be a little bit more rigid. So I think it's got more to do with that, more so than just there ain't nobody out here. I think it's really just, we've gotten a little more set in our ways, and sometimes it's hard to break those habits, right? And it really comes down to like, how bad do you want to be with someone, and I do think that you can grow into loving someone. You can grow into being more willing to compromise. But I think that, and this is going to go back to something that I was talking about last week, and it's kind of like a theme, which is why I always ask, like, where do adults go to form platonic relationships in this day and age? And I feel like there's a key here. I feel like there's a key to not only getting us back in better standings with one another. And this is whether you're single, in a relationship, married, whatever. We need to learn how to communicate with one another again, but I think it's difficult to do so because, again, where do you go to forge platonic relationships? You don't. And so all we end up doing is just talking at one another online behind the cover of our handle. You know what I mean? But like in person, beyond work, right? Because there's probably somebody you work with that maybe you wasn't that crazy about him when you first met him, but then you all ended up growing to be very close friends, right? And when you think about life, like that's how life operates, is it grows gradually over a period of time. But then when you're out here and you're trying to date, it's like everything has to be boom, right? If I don't consider her an 8 or above, or vice versa, we're not going to date. If we're not evenly or equally yoked, then we're not going to go. It's like we got to figure out how to skip that part to figure out how to interact with one another and just allow like something to grow, to flourish, that may develop into more. I'm gonna keep asking that question because on a level, I kind of feel like that's what Tequila Tales is, right? It provides that space for people, especially like a lot of our regulars, right? They start showing up more often, and you recognize what the vibe is. This ain't a meat market. This isn't speed dating where there's some, overwhelming pressure as soon as you walk in a room. And it's like, yo, you've seen this person 3 or 4 times. Next thing you know, y'all exchanging social media handles, like now you can build, you can grow. Like we need more spaces where we can forge community. Okay, here's another comment that I thought was interesting.
And if you're looking at people that are like older 35, between that like millennial, like the millennial age, a lot of our moms didn't really have that much of a choice, right? They didn't really get to do what they want. And even some of them, they're like the crack era of like where a lot of the men were getting locked up, and they were a lot of single moms during that period. And they were doing a lot of struggling. So they were teaching their daughters, you need to be independent. Don't depend on anybody. And a lot of millennial women are now like, I'm focused. I can't depend on anybody. And even the men, my dad was one of those. You don't need a man. I'm the only man you need. If you need a man, come to me. Don't let one of these guys convince you that you need something from them. So then it puts all an automatic bad taste in your mouth, or it makes you assume that any guy that wants to do something for you or nice for you has ill will intentions, because some of us had dads that said that's what they want to do. So that can create a lot of controversy. It can create a lot of frustration in relationships, because it doesn't mean some of those guys really just want to do something nice for you, but a lot of us had daddies that say don't trust them because they knew what they were doing.
Interesting. See, again, it's one of the things I love, right? It's just the wide diversity of opinions, and that's something that I can't necessarily speak to, and like I said, I'm living vicariously through the people that's still out here in these streets, right? I'm trying to figure out how would I be See, I already know I'll be winning. I'm gonna just tell y'all that right now. Y'all can think I'm bullshit. I already feel like I'll be winning. But see, that's because, like I said a moment ago, I ain't afraid of the friend zone, right? I'm not afraid of the friend zone. So I would be getting to know people. I would be laying in the cut, like just trying to see if there is some chemistry. You know what I'm saying? See, I think people be afraid of the friend zone because they feel like you get banished to the friend zone and you can't come out. And it's like, nah, that's bullshit. Like on both sides. I call a lie on both sides, right? If a person finds you attractive, or if they find some aspect about you appealing, they will lean in at some point if they are available. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't see it as being some situation where it's like, oh, you come in and immediately you put some stamp on yourself. Now, if you a lame, or if she just not feeling you, or vice versa, then I don't know if you had came strong off top that would have changed anything. Like that wouldn't change anything, right? Like they would still essentially see you as such, and I'm always someone that says always lead with who you are off top, because the one thing you don't want to do is to be trying to be a role only to turn around and have to live that lie continuously. You know what I'm saying? But I do think that what she said is it does have some merit, right? But man, I always push back anytime someone gets into this headspace where it's almost like demonizing a woman, whether it's women demonizing themselves or men demonizing them for having independence, right? Like I feel like as an adult, that's kind of who you have to be. You know what I'm saying? Like regardless of whether or not you have a spouse or not. Like I don't know. It just, they because from the comment that she just made, she said that people are hesitant, to people are hesitant to allow someone to do something nice for them, because their daddies have always kind of put them on alarm. And if that's the case, that is something that, you really do have to be mindful of. That is something that you might need to seek some therapy on, right? Because that feels almost like an inability to allow yourself to be loved, right? And that's kind of dangerous, but again, I do think that there's a lot of merit in what it is that she shared. Now, I thought that this was interesting. Everybody can't do this, but I thought this was an interesting comment.
By 6 months, when he expressed interest of, okay, I think I'm serious, I would like to talk about marriage, first thing I did was take him to my dad, because who other would be able to better check a man for me than another man? Because as women, we can be very swayed by hearing things. Like, men who are charmers will know how to say the right things to woo you. And it's funny because my husband says that, like, oh, if a man wants a woman, all he's got to say is whisper sweet nothings, he says, which is interesting because it's true. So we tend to like follow into relationships with our heart, which can blind us sometimes. And you need a third person who can be objective for you, who understands who you are and who wants the best for you. And for me, that was my dad. And so when my dad was like, yep, I think he's a good guy, I think he will do this and this for you. And I was like, okay, done.
I'm gonna tell you something. I love my mama with all my heart and soul. I ain't taking nobody to my mama and letting her make that decision for me, right? And that's just me, okay? My mama ratchet, okay? So I ain't gonna necessarily say that her word is law when it comes to how do you feel about someone. But I did think that her overall point was pretty interesting. And I guess it really just kind of comes down to the kind of relationship that you have with your parents. And it doesn't necessarily have to be super contentious in order for you to be like, oh no, I'm not. Like, I think my mother is incredible. I think she's brilliant, beautiful, and a lot of fun. I just know that, we view things differently inside of this space, and always have on some levels. She's an Aries, so she's going to be a little bit more impulsive. She's a little bit more hot-blooded than I am. I'm more methodical, so whereas my mother can be very kind of reactionary and, even lets me know. I remember some of the advice that she's given me in times past, right? Like, kind of sent me off a little bit, and not because like it was bad advice. It just wasn't the advice for me. And so I've always been one of them type of people that I really don't care what other people think about who I fall in love with or who I'm interested in. Like, I was never that guy. I was never that guy that needed the homies to tell me that they thought somebody I was dating was fine. Like, I just didn't need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that first off, what I always found attractive was pretty broad. You know what I'm saying? Like, shapes, sizes, colors, the full spectrum. I find women beautiful. So all of them I find attractive, but some of my homies, they got a type. So if they got a type, I'm not gonna put her on the chopping block for you so that you can hear me with, I mean, yeah, she all right, You know what I mean? Like, it might piss me off if you say that shit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not even gonna ask you for your feedback, because if you don't tell me what it is that I want to hear in that moment, I'm liable to get disappointed or frustrated. And not like it's even gonna change me, but like, I think that's what it comes down to. If your opinion does not matter to me, then I'm not gonna solicit you for it, right? Like, it's why I don't ask for advice in many cases. Like, if I don't know about something, then I ask for your advice. But just like in general, especially if it's like matters of the heart, no, how do you feel about this? How does this person make you feel? But I can understand that there are some people that feel like they can kind of jump in and lead with their hearts, and maybe they're always making bad decisions as it relates to men or women. And so sometimes you kind of need like a conscientious observer, And so in a situation like that, if you do trust a parent, then yeah, I mean, who better to do it than them? It's just, I don't know. I always see things from two different perspectives. And to me, that's dicey. That's hella dicey, right? Because if you're not cautious, it kind of feels like then you may find yourself living your parents' relationship, right? I'm in this relationship because my family loves them so much. And it's like, yeah, but you got to live with them, right? So when you're having an argument with them, y'all got to figure out how to work that out. You know what I'm saying? Like your mama or your dad ain't the one that's got to tolerate his or her toxic behavior. You got to deal with that. So who gives a shit how much they like them? And so anytime that people get too tapped into wanting to please parents, it's like, listen, I get it. You know, especially if you had good parents, you know, I'm hoping that I'm going to be my son's hero, you know, and I more than likely will be. But my goal as a father and as a man is to teach him how to think for himself, right? And to teach him how to rely on his gut instinct and to teach him how to accept the consequences and the repercussions and the results of the decisions that he's made, right? That's what I feel like messes people up sometimes, is them wanting to absolve themselves from any responsibility of their actions. It's like, nah, it's okay to do wrong shit as long as you are willing to hold yourself culpable, right? If as long as you say to yourself, like, nah, I made that wrong decision, and then you learn and you grow from it. And if you don't grow from it and you go back to it, you do so willingly, right? Like, don't play the victim when you keep consciously walking in and making dumb decisions. You know what I'm saying? Like I've dated pathological liars before, or habitual liars. She wasn't pathological; she was a habitual one, right? But the coochie was good, so I stuck in it. And I made excuses, right? And I knew she was a liar. Had been one for a minute. Okay, had all the evidence on the planet, right? But the sex was great, so I stayed there. And so if I just told y'all some of these stories, like that shit could be a whole YouTube series on its own. Like bizarre stuff happened in this relationship. And as it would accelerate and get more and more ridiculous, I had to take ownership of that. And every time I want to get upset with her, I like in my heart of hearts, I knew like you deserve that shit because you've been knowing that she been lying for a long ass time now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, that be that thing that we all have a tendency to do sometimes, man, where we don't take ownership of stuff. You know what I'm saying? My man Lethal Weapon said the friend zone is okay. Why rush? Hey, listen, I totally agree. You know. Also, Fly says facts. The most I would do is show my children an example of a healthy relationship. Yep. For them to see how we treat each other. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, you know, you find yourself in that space sometimes where it's like, and I know it's easier said than done, right? I mean, I'm a new father. So I'm in this now. And I know if he start doing some boneheaded shit, like it's gonna take everything in my power to not just jump in and do it for them. You know what I'm saying? But to me, I have to remember that that's where growth is. It's just like allowing them to make mistakes and just hopefully equipping them enough so that they can get stronger and learn from them. And then also like kind of building you up for when I'm no longer here. Like I'm gonna be here for a long ass time, but at some point, you know, I hopefully don't outlive my children. Right. And so, you know, the goal is to train them up to the point where they can be independent and kind of do those things on their own. Okay, so now this was interesting. Play the comment, give you some context afterward.
Hypothetically, right? You choose to be in a poly relationship. Let's say man is married to one woman, you're the other woman. What's the first thing people are gonna say? You the side chick. But that's a very Western capitalist idea. So I was telling her, I've been having this conversation for like 2 weeks. I don't know about swinging, but about poly relationships. And how in society, the way that we view things, right? Especially in our community, because there's so many different things kind of coming at us where we typically are very traditional, right? And we're not open to other ideas for a variety of reasons. I'm not gonna knock any of the reasons, right? So, and as a particularly public person, the conversation I was having is like, if you choose to engage in certain things, even though it should be about you, everyone has input on what that looks like, right? So if hypothetically, right, you choose to be in a poly relationship, let's say man is married to one woman, you're the other woman. What's the first thing people are gonna say? You the side chick. But that's a very Western capitalist idea. Most of the world doesn't necessarily see things that way. And so while of course we live here, right, understanding that when you remove some of the things, like what drives that thought is ego. What belongs to me, right? So if I'm sharing said man, it doesn't belong to me. That's an ego thought. It's not a real thought. If you grow up in a situation where you understand what it means to be a collective, and it's so much deeper than a sexual thing, right? Then you understand it very differently. But because it's not accepted, and I tell my friends or whatever, like, I think this, you know what I mean? The first thing they're going to say, girl, what's wrong with you? Or you just a side piece, or you know what I mean? Or whatever. Or if you're in the religious community, even though we know that poly is in every religious everything, right? That it's not godly. It's supposed to be a man and a woman. It's supposed to be all these things, or whatever the case may be, whatever your reasoning is. And so I don't think it's a hell no. I think it is very unique to who you are, what you want out of life. Someone mentioned earlier about being I think it was a sister here, about being a millennial, like what you're willing to take, what you're not going to take, and all those sorts of things. Sometimes you might have someone who, because we know one person ain't gonna give everybody 100%. We can believe it in our minds, right? But often we train ourselves to operate in a way that isn't necessarily natural. We just been told that's what we're supposed to do, right? And so when we get outside of that box and that training, sometimes you can think a little bit differently. So I'm gonna leave it there.
And so what's funny is when she said, okay, so I'm gonna leave it there. I think she felt like, yo, I've been drinking, and if I keep talking, they got these cameras going. I'm gonna say something that's gonna get me in trouble. But no, man, she said a mouthful, right? That was an interesting discussion, right? When we broached the topic of polyamorous relationships. And I intentionally broached it as delicately as possible, because one thing that I have just identified just through conversations with people is that it feels like in this area, Arizona specifically, right? Phoenix specifically, that community is active, thriving, and not afraid to like openly share it, like kind of wear it on their sleeves a little bit, broadcast it. And that's of all races, like specifically even Black race. We're very conservative in most cases when it comes to the way that we express ourselves, especially kind of in this space. But I do feel that what she was saying does have some merit, as it relates to the way that we our construct, our relationship constructs are based upon the nation that we currently live in, and kind of the rules of engagement that has been set up, and so it's like when it comes to that, I'm always just fascinated to just hear various people kind of share their thoughts on it. And to be very frank, I'm all for people openly expressing themselves, right? Because I do think that there are many people that would be more willing, would enjoy it more if they could openly admit that it's something that they desire or something that they're cool with. But I think, as with all things, there's such a elevated degree or elevated level of shame that's often associated with any kind of non-traditional relationship format that it either causes people to do one of a few things. Either they will completely go in hiding, right, and just deny something that they either desire or are actually cool with, or they will do it, but kind of like, it's real hidden, it's real secret or whatever, and sometimes secret from their significant other, right? And that's, to me, is where, okay, like now you're encroaching into a space where, you're just flat out wrong, or you are being unfair to your significant other, but I think it is because it's like, there's so much taboo associated with it that people don't even know how to address it. And I don't think that people show up lying about it. I think that they show up attempting to deny something that they really desire, and eventually who they are eventually comes out. And they have a hard time reconciling the reality of who they are with the face that they present to people, right? And so, I think that that's the tricky space, is figuring out how to be open and honest with yourself about it first, with the acknowledgement that may mean that there are going to be some people that are just off limits to you, right? Because everybody's not down for that. Everybody's not interested in that lifestyle. And so I know some people that they are very much that person, but because they don't want to wear that brand on their sleeve, because they know it'll limit them, they know it'll put them strictly in a particular community, they'll be out here mingling amongst common folk, but are very much having a poly-ish style relationship. Now, I know that the dynamics of a poly relationship are much more like there's rules to engagement, and in most cases people don't really talk about said rules, and in terms of like really what comprises these types of experiences and these types of relationships. But I do think that the people that probably would naturally be in that lifestyle, they just have not openly come to the conclusion. Like a matter of fact, I think it was Neo recently had going on record was saying like that, this is the person that he is. And he's like, never again is he going to even pretend like he's anything less. Right. And so it's like, hey, listen, man, if that's what floats your boat, you know what I'm saying? This was the follow-up to that woman's comment, right? That I thought was kind of funny, right? Because anytime you got some brothers in the room, they gonna say it with their chest, right?
So I've been offered to be in, open relationships before, right? Personally, to be honest with you, I think that person really loved that person. They willing to step out and allow that person to be with somebody else. That lets me know like that person really loved them, because they can't please them the way they want to be pleased. So we all say, you know what, man, I do anything for my wife, I do anything for my husband, whatever they want. But are you willing to do whatever it takes to make that person happy in that relationship? You can't provide what that person looking for. So why not allow that person to be happy, but still be with you in the same token? Ain't nobody, see, I like that young lady right there. She talking over there. She being real, she being open. A lot of people ain't being real and being transparent and being honest about the situation when you're in a relationship. Like she said, everybody, you were the person, that person can't make you happy on every level. You got to be willing to tap into a different source if you guys are open in that relationship to allow that. So I think that's very important.
Okay. Said it with his chest. You know what I'm saying? Let you know off top. I've been offered to be in several open relationships. It's like, all right, man, I get it. You know what I'm saying? But no, that was an interesting discussion. Because like I said, the topic that particular month was called the swing state. And this was during the time of the election. So, it was a bit of a metaphor. We were talking about the multiple states that a relationship can go through, like, as all the different flux states that a relationship can go through. But then on the back end, because of the fact that, like I said a moment ago, talking about Phoenix and the fact that this is a rather sexually liberated city, I did use the sex swing as one of the images when I was promoting said event. So I was like, there's no way that we can talk about the topic and not broach the elephant in the room. And so the moment that we did into this space, we obviously had to do so delicately, because I didn't want to shame people. But I also didn't want to just make it seem like, yo, man, freak time, you know what I'm saying? Because, you never really know why people come to the tequila tales, right? So there was the degree to broach it in a way to where it was open and honest, but also like legitimate, you know what I'm saying? Like we can kind of get into this and have a for real ass conversation, and like I waited for the end of the evening. So like everybody had already kind of let that alcohol settle in. And it's like, okay, now we can actually be honest, right? And so when that brother said that, I was like, yo, that's real. And I'm not even gonna pretend like I don't agree with some aspects of what it was that he said, as it relates to just what if you were with someone and you were almost having an inability to please them sexually, right? You love them, but you have an inability to please them sexually. Like, what are you willing to do? And that is one of those type of questions that I feel like we either don't talk about enough or because maybe it's one of those kind of discussions that it's difficult to have, and it's really only meant to be had with you and your significant other, right? Because it's if you're having that conversation, then it's probably not always necessarily an ideal conversation. It might be because, of some inadequacy or some health issue, I'm fortunate enough at this point to not be experiencing that. But, from what I understand, like erectile dysfunction can just kind of creep up on people sometimes. Now, I try to stay healthy and, keep the blood pumping and things of that nature. So, I mean, I'm hoping that I'm one of the few that's not going to have that situation. Right. But you never know, right? And if that were to occur, how does that look from a relationship perspective? Like, what am I willing to do? See, I think sometimes when we think about it, we always think about it from the other perspective of like our significant other having multiple partners, and then we just kind of sitting there like, in the corner of the shower asking permission to hop into the orgy or something. And it's like, nah, it's not always that cut and dry, right? Sometimes it may be like, okay, you're dealing with someone is having some type of health issue, and what if sex was one of the major factors in you all's relationship? Now, there are sometimes in relationships like maybe your libidos are matched, and maybe they weren't very high. Maybe you've always had a more cerebral style relationship. So when you transition or the libido kind of lessens, then all right, you all just kind of make that transition gracefully. But if y'all was them types that was fucking like 3 times a day, right? Or even just multiple times a week, you know what I'm saying? Something occurs where you got to draw that back, and it's for an extended period of time. And I ain't just talking about a couple of months. Like, what if it is like a year, 2 years? Is that really fair? Is that really fair for your wife to just not get her rocks off? Or now y'all got to be going and, using toys and all of this other type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And not saying that toys, but if y'all wasn't really big into them toys before, you know what I'm saying? So at that point, if we're being honest, it is a bit of an ego thing. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing, right? I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree. I'm saying that I can understand how you can find yourself in a situation where it's like, yo, man, we got to have this real ass conversation, because if we're going to be able to continue, if we're going to be able to move forward, is it really fair that you would expect your significant other to just be sexually, deprived? Lethal Weapon story time with Isaac would be great. I'm here for the tea. Yo, listen, man. Listen, okay. I got some stories, man. Like one of these days. I guess I will never really love someone because I'm not doing poly. And you know what? In real talk, it is not for everyone. It is not for everyone. I'm not even gonna pretend like it is. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I'm not even someone that's pretending like it's for me. I think I'm just one of those type of people where as these topics, the cool thing about the way that my mind works is I try to remove how I personally feel from the discussion so that I can just get into the cerebral aspect of it, right? Like, I really don't know how I would be in any situation until I get there. Like, I was literally just talking to Casey about it the other day when I was just like, man, what I said a little while ago when I first started, when I was like, I really wonder who I would be or how I would be if we didn't go down the path that we were on. Like, if I was just out there in them streets right now, because as much as I, was playing early and was making it seem like, oh man, shit, I'd be out here winning. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm speaking as a man that's speaking from a secure space that, has had a significant other for a while. So I'm not thirsty out here. You know what I mean? Like, shit, it's easy for me to just throw some game out there and just be a player, right? Because it's not do or die, right? Like, when it's do or die, and man, listen, the worst thing on the planet is to have a dry spell. I never get that one period in my 20s, man. When I hit that little dry patch, man, I couldn't buy some ass, man. I'm telling you, it was like, and this was before I moved down here and shit. Hey, listen, no, I ain't gonna say that. Y'all, listen, there is a set of streets down here where that shit is outrageous, right? I'm talking open hookers walking out at any time of day, clear heels on, thongs, all of that. Completely wild. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, I digress. This was another comment that someone made.
Basically, if you have a situation where it's like group economics, because not all things is about emotion and like sex and love and things of that nature. If you got 3 people in the household and they all contribute $1,000, that's $3,000 versus 1,000 or 0. So when you get into a poly relationship, it could be economically valuable and financially feasible.
And so if you all haven't been able to tell already, man, I got a show coming up on the 12th of December, right? That is in 2 days. And it is shaping up to be a rather nice show. So if you are here in the Phoenix area, you definitely want to be there, right? I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's just, December shows are always fun energy. You got that Sagittarius energy, which is like, they call it chronic foot and the mouth disease. Because one thing a Sagittarius is going to do is tell you how they feel, and they're going to say it with their chest. And so that is going to be the energy that permeates this evening. We're also in retrograde, so it's also going to be kind of all over the place, but should be a lot of fun. Tickets are still available, but they are moving fast. So, you definitely want to go ahead and cop yours. But to the point that what she just made, I thought that was honest, right? Like, and see, that was when we started, like I said, as we dug open this topic, we started really kind of getting into some of the mechanics of how poly actually operates, right? Like I said, when people think about poly, they're only thinking about like multiple sex partners. But from what that woman was talking about, she was like, yo, it's actually more economic than anything else, right? Like, she obviously used just a very like baseline example, but she was like, okay, if you got 3 people bringing in $1,000, a month, that's $3,000 as opposed to nobody bringing in none, or one person bringing in 1,000, and so she was seeing it more from like the communal financial aspect of it. And that's what I was getting at when I was like, a lot of people who act like they're open for the lifestyle, they're not really aware of all the mechanics that goes into actually getting it to work. You know what I'm saying? But on the heels of that was this comment, which I thought was absolutely hilarious.
The truth is, a lot more women would be open to poly relationships if y'all had the money to afford it. You cannot be poly and poor. If you cannot afford to financially take care of one woman, if you cannot afford to mentally pour into one woman, to protect and provide for one woman, what makes you think you qualify for 2 and 3? Now, that being said, If you are doing what you're supposed to be doing and you have the financial means, the truth is most of y'all could have as many women as you can afford. But until you have done what you need to do financially, mentally, spiritually to ensure you can cover one family, one household, one woman, then you really shouldn't look at trying to expand elsewhere. And that's all I have to say on poly relationship.
I get it, Kev.
Okay, so you know what? That's interesting though, right? Because essentially that's the business approach, right? Like you're not ready to franchise is basically what she's saying, right? That one business that you got is not thriving enough for you to expand, right? Okay, I got you.
You cannot be poly and poor. Let me tell you something, man. And that's what I said. Like, you ain't never got to worry about somebody sliding or slipping through the cracks with some bullshit at the tequila tales, because the room is going to police itself. Like, there's somebody whose tongue is sharp, is sitting off in the rafters, and when you say that dumb thing that they don't agree with, they like, let me go ahead and get that. Let me go ahead and get that. You know, and just a level set. Like, you cannot be poly and poor. You know, and I do agree with what it is that she said, you know, as it relates to people's willingness to accept things more if you have the resources to be able to afford said lifestyle, right? And, you know, in most cases, like, a lot of people are trying to tap into the lifestyle, but they aren't really at the space where they have mastered maintaining one relationship successfully. So I think everything she said, man, has merit, you know. And so right on the heels of that was this brother. And this brother, you know, he actually surprised me, right? Because, you know, he's a regular, and he's actually a very talented artist as well. But I'm always fascinated by his level-headed assessments of, you know, how he views the relationship landscape, right? But then it tickles me a little bit because, you know, when you see this brother, you know, he look like he got a little bit of age and some wisdom. This brother's like 28. You know what I'm saying? 27, 28. He might have just made 28 this year. It's like, dude, stop it, nigga. I know you was out in them streets, man. You better are you trying to Derek Jackson us? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I hope you ain't trying to be on some Derek Jackson flow, you know, but no, he's a really good brother. And I you know, he had a solid response.
No offense to polyamorous relationships or anything like that, but I truly feel that if you're mentally where you're at, spiritually where you're at, financially where you're at, it's extremely lazy of you to have to explore options and be in multiple relationships with different people. That's just my personal opinion. If you're checking off all those boxes, why can't you be disciplined enough to be in a relationship with that one particular person, male or female, and figure out exactly what it is about that person? I think what's being missed is that a relationship is an opportunity to practice love, and love is ultimately a practice. And so you have to invest in that person and figure out what it is that they like. I know for sure when it comes to men, we don't like instruction or being told how to do something. And so when a woman is trying to communicate what they need as far as sexual or whatever the case may be, we probably turn a blind eye or close our ears to it. But there has to be an environment opened enough to where all the needs are being met. And that way you don't have to have 4 or 5 different people trying to take care of all this or some economic bullshit, whatever the case may be, for the relationship to work. I think that's just lazy, in my opinion.
Okay. So Lethal Weapon wants to know, do you know if the brothers are okay with the woman having another man, or is it one-sided? That is a great question. I did ask that, right? Like, that was actually how I posed the question, because I had a feeling like, you know, anytime that you broach this topic, it kind of comes in from a space of like the typical guy wanting to sleep with multiple women, you know what I mean? And not, because to me, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if you are going to be comfortable with polyamory, then you got to be comfortable with it on both sides of the fence, right? Like, it's got to be like, oh, you can have multiple partners and she can have multiple partners, right? Like, if it's one of those things where it's like, oh no, that's just something that I can do. Okay, then no, that's not that ain't really polyamory, what you talking about. That's something else. And there is a term for it that I just, if I think hard enough, I'll probably be able to identify exactly what it is. But that is not actually what polyamory is, you know what I'm saying, as it relates to the practice itself. And so that is how I posed the question initially, was asking like, and I asked that to women first. If you were with a man, you fell in love with him, you all were taking your time, you fell in love with him, it was 6 some odd months, you all are intimate, then you find out he has a micro penis, right? Or for whatever reason, maybe he's impotent or just whatever, right? But you have fallen in love with this guy's spirit, and he was comfortable with you pleasuring yourself outside of this relationship. Would you be open for it? So that was the way that I asked it first, because even before I got to the men to ask them, would y'all be cool with it? What I was trying to figure out is, even as it relates to women, because I feel like anytime that this conversation comes up, it's always expected that the man is the one that has the options, or the man is the one with the multiple partners. But if we're going to bend this to just see, okay, are we being fair? Is this an honest and equitable conversation? Let me paint a scenario just to see, even as a woman, is there any scenario that exists where you would feel comfortable being intimate with a man outside of this relationship if it was sanctioned by your significant other because of extenuating circumstances, whatever those extenuating circumstances are, right? Because like, imagine that you fall in love with some guy and he really does love you, right? And for whatever reason, he knows that he is unable, not unwilling, but completely unable to satisfy you, right? And so as a result, he still wants to be with you, but he can't be with you while simultaneously knowing that you're making the sacrifice of all sacrifices to be with him. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that can sometimes affect your ego even more. I guess it just depends on how your mind works. If you're the type of person, like, some people just want complete possession and dominion over you, but some people acknowledge their shortcomings, and it's like, if I can't do this for you, but it can be done, then I want you to be able to have that, right? Because I'm comfortable in my domain. I'm comfortable in this zone that I own, but I don't want to look at you and, you know what I mean? Like, because then that's just going to add to the feelings of inadequacy that I already have. Now I get to add guilt, right? It started with inadequacy. Now it's guilt on top of inadequacy, because, I'm already mad that I can't get you there. But the fact that you're just sitting there starving, man, it's like, shit, better go and sit on something somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, so I posed the question there. Nobody really bit on that. And again, these are theoretical questions. And I think that the moment that we broached that topic, people had already had some shit that they wanted to say anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, the conversation just kind of went in the direction that it went in. But yeah, if I had to guess, I would think that most men would probably have an issue with it, right? Unless they were already involved in the lifestyle. And I think that that's just because typically the way that we enter into these relationships is in a very possessive state. And I think the idea, like, man, I had a buddy who, I'm not even going to the specifics, just know, when you talk about project management, okay, this dude had a team. His team wasn't even a basketball team. His team was like a football team, okay? Like, I mean, he made the game look exhausting. It wasn't even fun looking at him be out in these streets sometimes, because it was like, dude, I don't even know. This looks exhausting, right? But he would still get bothered if he knew that a chick he was messing with another dude. And that always fascinated me. That always felt like, bro, like, I didn't even try to break down the pathology of it, but I was just like, yo, that is diabolical. That's diabolical that you can have that many women on your team and they all got to be loyal to you. I was like, okay, it is what it is. You said we have poly friends and it confuses me sometimes. I'm like, what you all are doing is just dating multiple people, right? Right, exactly, right? Because if they're not really engaged in the lifestyle, because like I said, when the more people be talking about it, sometimes when they come in the tequila tales, you start realizing like, oh, okay, like, no, there's structure. And I can always tell the people that do engage with the lifestyle because they defend it, right? Like they really do be speaking on it. And, they don't like when normal kinfolk try to just turn it into a sex thing because they're like, nah, this is some communal, old school, relationship type thing. And I'm like, all right, Casey, I knew a woman whose husband was really into her, but he really liked sex. And while she enjoyed it, he wanted he wanted way more often than her. She wanted him to find someone else to fill the need. Oh, wow. Interesting. See, and again, with situations like that, I think that that's where it really comes down to individual case by case basis. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna tell y'all like this, man. If it ain't nothing else that Tequila Tales is or will be, is I want it to be the thing that gives people the liberty to figure shit out on their own. Like, who cares what I have to say? Who cares what any relationship expert has to say? Like, what floats your boat? What makes you feel good? What is working for you and your significant other? And that's why when I was saying a moment ago, like, yeah, it's good to like, confer with your comrades or your loved ones or respected individuals, parents, but at the end of the day, what do we say in the community? What you eat don't make me shit. Yeah, that's exactly what this is, right? Like what you eat is not going to affect me. So if you like that shit with all the cholesterol and all the salt, bro, look, I want you to be as healthy as possible because I love you. I want you to be here, but I'm not slapping a burger out of your hand, right? Like you have to be responsible. You have to take ownership and take the onus of what occurs as a result of the decisions that you make. And so if you choose to go this conservative route and please everybody else around you, but wake up every day and feel empty and feel like you're not living your best life, that was a choice that you made, right? Don't blame other people. Don't hate on other people that are in the lifestyle because they had the, confidence to step out and just do their own thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like take ownership of how you think, right? Because who knows? Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. I know that this next topic is going to be interesting because, like I said, there's a retrograde topic and it's called doubling back. So, it's going to be us kind of looking to the past and really getting an opportunity to see how we feel about traditionalism versus modernism. You know what I'm saying? As well as maybe going back through some of the old topics and just some of the key conversational points that I really didn't get an opportunity to flesh out. So, like I said, we should have a good discussion. But as we are rounding our final corner, it is now time for the opinion. And this one is rather interesting. I took the liberty of recording it beforehand, so bear with me. Ladies, we need to have a talk. Like, seriously, I need some insight because I'm confused. Now, first, let me just say, I consider myself to be pretty progressive, like as progressive as anybody that came of age in the 90s. Like, I mean, we did have tip drill. What I'm trying to get at is that I'm trying, okay? And the Lord is still working on me. And progress is a journey, so bear with me. But have you all seen these new pants? And you know the ones I'm talking about, the leggings. I guess sundresses were not enough. you all had to go in full-on demon mode. The ones that don't just hug your booty, they move in. Like unpack a suitcase, sign a lease. These leggings are not tight, they're invasive. Who designed these? And more importantly, why? Like, was it a woman or a man? And how many sexual assault cases did they have in the background? Seriously, why? Like, I'm always amazed at how we solve problems that never really existed. I mean, I always thought the goal was to keep stuff out of your ass crack, not invite it in for coffee in the chat. And can we talk about the pitch meeting for these? Like, imagine sitting around the boardroom. Like, I need to know who sat in on that and said, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the thong of pants. It's bold, it's brave, it's butt crack. Like, who greenlit this? Was it a dare? And, you know, I did a little bit of research because I'm a bit of a curious soul. Turns out they're actually called butt crack leggings. That's right, butt crack leggings. Like, really, that's the name? Oh, so we're just naming things exactly what they do now. What's next? Shirts called nipple accentuators? And here's the thing, I thought we were making progress. You know, like Me Too, respect, boundaries. These leggings said, nah, we bringing harassment back, one squat at a time. Are these pants supposed to be a test? Like, are you trying to catch a predator? Like, you wear these to the gym and then suddenly Chris Hansen pops out asking, why don't you just have a seat right here? Are they comfortable? That's my real question. Like, do they come with a user's manual? Step 1, insert leggings. Step 2, question all your life decisions. And don't get me started on these things at Planet Fitness. Look, I'm not even trying to judge, but leggings that dramatic don't belong at a $10 a month gym. These leggings scream private Pilates studio or Equinox, not next to a guy in Crocs deadlifting row. And hear me out, like, let's look at the flip of this for a second. Like, what if men decided to create their own version of these pants? You know, leggings with a built-in elephant trunk situation. Just imagine it. Dudes running a Kroger after leg day, sweat still glistening, elephant trunks swinging side to side like it's a National Geographic special. All this while they're just trying to pick up some salmon and quinoa. Can you picture that? It's chaos. Produce owl pandemonium. And now everyone's standing there confused like, is this dude packing zucchinis? At some point, someone will have to say maybe, just maybe, this isn't the vibe that we want at a family-friendly grocery store. So what's the point? Like, are these leggings a social experiment? Are they trying to see how much attention one pair of pants can generate? Are we supposed to look? Because if so, mission accomplished. Like, are you trying to make our lives that much more difficult than it already is? Just know, if you are wearing these pants, the rest of us are trying to make sense out of it. These leggings are bold, and they're confusing. Ladies, these pants don't just turn heads, they turn the whole room into a confused therapy session. And that's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I mean, look at this. I mean, why? Why? I'm dead ass. I'm telling you. I've told y'all I try to get into the gym. I try to be active, and I'm starting to see these things find their way into Planet Fitness, and it's ridiculous. Like, why would you want pants in the crack of your ass? Like, it's sometimes y'all do things and it don't make sense. Like, this is almost as bizarre as the eyelashes. I don't know which ones is worse. I think them big ass eyelashes and these, y'all ain't doing, well, maybe y'all are doing this for us. I'm trying to figure out if this is for us. Maybe the eyelashes was for y'all and this was for us. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out so that I can know how I'm supposed to react, right? Because it's absurd. And if anybody in my family ever puts them on, because I got some aunties, and sometimes they like to, ooh, look, you know what I mean? Like it's some like little trend, and you know, all the old people on TikTok and shit now, and so they might see somebody wearing these things and decide to walk out the crib. Yeah. So I think we need to put a cap on this before it gets out of control. But with that being said, you guys, again, 12/12, if you're in the city, I'm looking forward to it. You know what I'm saying? And until the next time, and when will the next time be? Next Tuesday at this exact same time. You know, so tell your friends, man, pull up. And I know I said that Dr. Love was going to be on this particular episode, and I apologize. He will be here next week. So if you have questions, you know, just go ahead and email them. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the comment section now to email Dr. Love. Matter of fact, look, it's Dr. Love at thetequilatales.com. Dr. Love at thetequilatales.com if you have questions that you want Dr. Love to answer. But until the next time, you guys.
The truth is, a lot more women would be open to poly relationships if y'all had the money to afford it. You cannot be poly and poor.
A relationship is an opportunity to practice love, and love is ultimately a practice. And so you have to invest in that person and figure out what it is that they like.
I'm going to speak for you guys. I don't know if they know that it's okay to approach us sometimes, right? We can do the I thing, you know, hey.
Don't give him the ass. Don't give him the ass and see if he sticks around. See if he takes the time to get to know you.
You the prize. Tell her you the prize, right? You the prize. She the problem, you the prize. Yeah, I am the prize, right? It's speaking to people's trauma because they're not in a healed space.
Personally, to be honest with you, I think that person really loved that person. They willing to step out and allow that person to be with somebody else. That lets me know like that person really loved them because they can't please them the way they want to be pleased.
Monogamy is not for everyone. There are people that believe in it. We are conditioned a certain way as society, like what a woman is supposed to want, what a man is supposed to want.
You realize that, you know, at some point in life, it's not always about the chase. Yeah, it's about what you need as a man.
Come to find out later, had I never asked him, he would have never asked me out.
If you don't believe that you can be a friend with them, then that means that, to me, you think your character is shitty. You don't think you have nothing to offer in that regard.